On this episode of In the Gun, portal season is in full swing. We do our best to keep up with it. All of that and more on this edition of ITG.
Caution, this podcast contains bad jokes, optimism, and a healthy disdain for Pat Narduzzi. Watching it may increase your actual knowledge of actual football.
ITG.
All the pieces are in place for us to have a chance to win it all.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
There's Owen Schmitt in the building.
Like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines.
Towards the end, he in here, Jed Drenning.
I'm not much of an athlete.
The thing that's non-negotiable is playing hard and playing tough.
And Wesley, Valen, Uhler. You are in the gun.
Because once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 316 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I am your host, Wes Uhler, as always, flanked by the best teammates in the business. We've got the full gambit tonight. We've got the signal caller, Jed Drenning. We have got the co-host, producer, Mr. Do-It-All himself, Schuyler Callihan. And, of course, the barbecuing, sharp-dressing, beer-trucking man, Owen Schmitt. And we have our village of sponsors that always make this possible that we have to thank right here off the jump. JR, everybody there at Team Toothman, everyone at Toothman Ford. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. They've been with us since early days here. They've been with WVU and a huge supporter of NIL the entire way. Big shout out to everybody there at Team Toothman. A big thanks to Rick Lewis and the good people at Fortis for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. You got to visit fortis.us.com. Johnston Equipment, Emily, Bryce, are friends of the show here. Make sure you're visiting them on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan. You can always check them out online as well. Johnston, that's with a T, JohnstonEQ.com. And of course, the Book Exchange. Get all your WVU, gear and apparel at the Book Exchange. And when you do so, of course, make sure you are using that code in the gun 20, whether you are shopping in either of their two locations or online at bookexchangewv.com, in the gun 20. To get 20% off on your friends here at your new favorite WVU football podcast. And I tell you what, boys, Jed's been running wild with these YouTube shorts that he's been producing here. Jed is like the kid who got a new toy for Christmas, and man, is he putting that thing to use.
It's been productive. What we did was we looked into some tools that would help us create some of these things. And so we're kind of starting on second base from a production standpoint with some of the clips we put together. Right now, we're probably a couple dozen, 15 or 20 in. And it's added to the shorts element of the YouTube page that was there before, but these are different. They're kind of yanked straight from episodes. Some of our more viral episodes, whether it was McAfee, Charles Wesley Godwin, Coach Rod being part of the show, things like, and just some fun conversations that we've had throughout the course of the show to kind of give people a sense or flavor of what the show's all about. But I do hear you, okay? There are limitations to what this program can do that we're building these things with. It's not as simple as just me inserting my voice or your voice or Owen's. It's not as simple as that. It's a heavier lift than you might think. But I have seen the comments. We've had a handful complaining about the sound of the AI voice on there. So as always, we're listening. Now, as to whether or not we'll respond, I don't know. I have some limitations in terms of what I can and can't do, but we hear you. Just keep watching, keep liking, keep commenting. Yes, you could even comment on the shorts. All those things help the YouTube algorithm and put us in position to produce more content for you. But of course, the biggest thing we always ask, sub. If you can subscribe and encourage a friend to do it, be an ear, tell an ear. We need as many subs as we can get to help things out. But yeah, those shorts will continue to be coming your way. Right now, there's one just about every day. I don't know how long that'll continue, but they'll be part of what we do here. It'll be something that just surfaces on your timeline when you're scrolling through your phone. It'll be 30 to 60 seconds of ITG fun is what the intent or design is. But so anyway, that's worked out pretty well so far. Great start to 2026.
Yeah, there's been a good response to it. They're doing some good numbers. If you could just get rid of that AI voice for us all, Jed, I think people would be very happy. But we'll do what we can with what little we have. All right.
Hey, the damn robot has feelings too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Come on
It's
now.
exactly right. And when you start pissing off the computer is when things start going bad. All right. I've seen the movies before. So everybody just take it easy. All right. Just take it easy.
When you're
Uh,
talking to Grok or Chat GPT, some people like they'll make a comment or request and they'll put please at the end. I get that. I get that. Yeah, you don't want to be Will Smith and iRobot, right? Like you said, Wes, and
Oh,
just hate him. But at the same
exactly right.
time, is there is there an element of humanity you extend just by being courteous and polite to stay in the good habit of saying it to people? Do you say please? I don't know. Sometimes maybe I do. I
I
don't know
mean,
the answer to
I
that.
tell SIRI if I say it, it'll answer. I tell it it's worthless. So maybe it's going to backfire on me.
Down the road now. Oh, you're
Maybe
on the list now, Schuyler.
maybe I'm just younger than all you young kids on here, but I don't talk to Siri or Chat GPT or Grok or any of that. All right. Call me a boomer. I let them do their thing. I do mine. Okay. We can exist in separate worlds. All right. I spend enough time on a computer for work and things like that. I don't need to start talking to the computers as well. Guys, pretty cool news for an incoming WVU recruit, perhaps the most notable, highest ranked incoming WVU football recruit, of course, Matt Sieg. He was named Maxwell Football Club's National Player of the Year, gentlemen.
Pretty good.
And pretty good. Some other guys, from Western Pennsylvania that have won this award that you might have heard of: LeVar Arrington, Terrell Pryor. Those guys were all right at the collegiate and pro level, but a pretty substantial honor for a pretty substantial recruit.
Dangerous football player on both sides of the ball. I mean, just wildly productive. Yes, he's coming in as a defensive back, but don't be surprised if he's one of these guys that at some point finds his way to the offensive side of the football as well with dual roles. Who knows? As this roster management portion of college football continues, and you really got to get the most out of each kid that you have. We saw Utah do it with half a dozen or so kids that regularly contributed on the offensive side of the football, some of their defensive starters or their big defensive contributors. And Matt Sieg could be one of those guys. But I definitely, Owen, want to give a shout out to friend of the show, John Antonic, of course, West Virginia sports historian. John put out a tweet and made a great point. WOA, and he's talking about Matt Sieg. He joins South Charleston's Robert Alexander as the only prep signees to earn National Player of the Year honors for West Virginia football. Of course, Matt Sieg out of Fort Cherry. You had Robert Alexander out of South Charleston. You guys are too young to remember, but he was a big, big deal. It was when I was a young kid. But I remember what a big deal he was, what a coup it was to sign him. I think Garrett Ford told the story. Garrett Ford Sr., may he rest in peace, about his one responsibility was to make sure that we signed him. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's how the story went. And so he got nervous because, you had some other dalliances there with Pitt and some others. But Robert Alexander, former South Charleston standout, who went on to really great things at West Virginia as well, but former National High School Player of the Year. That is quite an honor, Owen. National Player of the Year. That tells you Matt Sieg was doing some things on both sides of the football.
Yeah, it lets you know that there's a definite stamp of approval on the athleticism.
I gotta say too. Or go ahead, Big O.
No, you're good. You're good.
The one of the finalists for that award. I always find these things interesting because I want to see who they're going up against. Was a running back, very under recruited for whatever reason, Miles McLaughlin. He rushed for 71 touchdowns and over 4,000 yards as a senior. One season. That's not a career. And a season. 71 freaking touchdowns.
What I always want to see when I see those types of numbers, like I remember when Jeff Swisher from Sistersville. Remember Faces in the Crowd? You guys might be too young. Oh, and you probably remember Faces in the Crowd was a big deal. If you got in Faces in the Crowd in Sports Illustrated back in the old print SI days, they'd have a shout out to 3 or 4 high school level athletes. And Jeff Swisher, running back standout, who won the Kennedy Award from Sistersville, got in there for running for 448 yards and 9 touchdowns against Frontier High School in Ohio. I'm sure Frontier High School is long since closed or folded into another school, but I always wanted to do a deep dive. Who is Frontier Ohio? I mean, who were there 8 guys on that team? How did you even do that? Yeah, you might have been a heck of a football player. He went on to Glenville State, actually. But I'm right there with you, Schuyler. There's a story behind those things when you see them.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to be honest, when I saw Matt Sieg as one of 7 finalists, I said, great. That's an honor to be a finalist,
Yeah.
but you're not going to win that, right? You're not going to win that. And then he wins it. He wins it. And here he comes to Morgantown. So that's that's a feather in the cap for Matt Sieg and for West Virginia football. Great job. Shout out to Matt Sieg. And there's a short, speaking of shorts, about Matt Sieg and how excited we are to bring him to Morgantown. So guys, that's big news.
No, certainly is, and a very cool national honor for him. He'll get honored in March. I think like the theater that's attached to the College Football Hall of Fame, if I'm remembering correctly, down in that whole complex area there in Atlanta. So very cool for him. 131 rushing touchdowns in his high school career, 8 passing touchdowns, and we're going to be very excited to see him in the old gold and blue here very soon. Jed, before we go to our first break here and talk some WVU portal specific stuff on the other side, there are some national college football portal stories and conversations that you wanted the four of us to kick around here before we get to WVU specifics.
I did. And I would start with this. Oregon has an interesting situation in that they're obviously in the playoffs. When's this episode drop? Thursday. I lose track of the days. You got a game Thursday night, you got a game Friday night. So you got Oregon getting ready to face Indiana in the semifinals. They're in the Final Four of college football. And meanwhile, as they're doing so, you have a kid from their team. They already lost one running back to injury, right? But they have another kid from their team in Jaden Lamar, who played against Texas Tech and had some contributions there. So he's part of the rotation, and he entered the transfer portal like over the weekend, maybe when it opened. And meanwhile, I'm hearing reports. We should know by the time this airs if you want to look it up, because I think the players' report has to come out Wednesday night for these games, Thursday or Friday. And so he's either going to be on the list or not. So you'll know if he's going to play. But the reason I bring that up is he practiced like at least Monday night.
Yeah.
So he's in the portal and he practiced, and we don't even know if he's going to play. So that's one thing I wanted to discuss. And then you have a situation that's pretty crazy. It's wild and wacky with this quarterback at Washington, Demond Williams. All right. So he signs an NIL deal, a contract, old school contract per se. And as I understand it, it had a no jump into the portal clause. It was a formal contract. So before the ink's even dry after he signs the contract, he enters the portal with a no contract attachment to his portal entry saying, hey, I'm entering the portal anyway. Nobody contact me. So here you have Washington. They're going to force the issue. They're talking about really pressing legally. And one of the reasons I bring this up, you see these things happen all the time. How enforceable are these? How enforceable? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But typically, and I'm not a lawyer, I play one on TV and took some classes, right? But what you have to demonstrate if you're going to enforce one of these actions legally is you have to be able to show damages. You have to show that something happened to you that you are now not whole as a result of what played out. And this might be the first time, and this is the chatter among the national media, this might be the first time that one of the schools legitimately can make a damages argument, because here's the situation. The portal opens. Everything's hot off the press. You had these quarterbacks signing in the first handful of days, especially the top tier marquee guys. Whether it's, you got the quarterback from Cincinnati signing with Texas Tech. You got Sam Levitt flying every round, looking where he's going to sign. So these things are happening at blistering pace or at blistering speed. Well, meanwhile, here's Washington, who thought their quarterback was under contract. So they're like, well, we don't have to get in the quarterback game. All right, go ahead and let those top tier guys get signed because our guy's right here because the contract says so. Meanwhile, after some of those top tier guys are signed, he says, just kidding. I'm now leaving. Forget your contract. Now that a couple of the best guys in the country are unavailable, good luck making yourself whole. So is that the type of damages that might make this a unique situation at Washington? These are the types of precedents that it's going to take to impact or affect change. I don't know where this goes legally, but it's interesting. Like I had one attorney friend say to me, maybe what they should do is let him go. They get out of, because how are you going to enforce it? It goes back to the old Mike Tomlin adage. Look, I want volunteers, not hostages. Well, what greater hostage is there than somebody whose NIL deal you're enforcing? Do you really want that guy quarterbacking your football team? So if they let him go, now you're off the hook for his NIL money, and you might be able to, in fact, sue him for damages. So you might get money on top of it. So that's an interesting legal challenge that's taking place. Pay attention to that. And of course, as I understand it, I don't think this has been substantiated, but one of the names that's being mentioned that might have been contacting him or had some involvement was Lane Kiffin at LSU. Again, not substantiated. That's just one of the names being tossed around there because Washington is, making accusations of, look, there was obviously meddling going on here because somebody was contacting these kids. I'm not saying it was Lane Kiffin. I'm not saying who it was, but somebody was to get this to happen. And then finally, the third thing that I want your guys' response to, this is the crazy times we live in, and we're talking portal, so let's talk this. You never have a more desperate situation in modern college football than when you are getting a new coach and you're a team in transition. Look, even if you're not in transition, you're going to lose a massive chunk of your roster every year now. That's just the cost of doing business as college football currently stands, with a couple exceptions, right? But when you are replacing your coach, they really toss kerosene onto those burning embers. And it's far worse. We talked last week, Iowa State was down to 16 football players on their roster. So we thought replacing 81 guys, new guys coming in, they're going to have more than that. And they're not the only ones. But meanwhile, Matt Campbell left Iowa State, went to Penn State, and guess where no fewer than 18 former Iowa State Cyclones have entered the portal to transfer to? Penn State. 18 players. And people thought that it was a big deal when Cignetti got 8, 9, 10, whatever it was, he got from JMU to go to Indiana. 18? You're literally bringing your football team with you. So those are some of the things that I wanted to bring up in this crazy new world of college football, because we're going to be talking about West Virginia's portal acquisitions in the main body of the show. So I thought there's some other things going on nationally that are getting some attention. What are your guys' thoughts on some of those stories?
Well, that's the crazy world we live in now, Jed. I mean, why can't the whole team leave for the other program? Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the easiest way for a coach to transition. Those guys instantly will know the culture. So you're basically bringing your culture to your new program. Crazy to think that you went from playing for Iowa State to Penn State, which is that's a in my opinion, that's a slight upgrade. Yeah, right. I don't know, the quarterback situation makes me laugh because I guess I don't know all the logistics behind it, but having a contract and then just basically saying, yeah, I'm not following that thing, or how much money have they paid him? You know what I mean? Do they get it back? Who knows? I mean, I agree with you 100% on they're going to definitely have to, there's going to be cases like this more and more so going forward. And eventually, hopefully, something plays out where we get some sort of, set in stone rules.
Well, here's a question for you. I'll toss to you with this. And Owen made a good point. Traditionally, as pedigrees go, you would look at Penn State with greater reverence than Iowa State, right? If those two teams each played once a year for the last 5 years, are you not taking Iowa State to win more than they lose? Which is part of the reason Matt Campbell's now at Penn State and not Iowa State, right?
I mean, I don't know. A year ago at this time, Penn State was in the national semifinal and in a Big Ten championship game. I mean, Franklin did have them humming until it all came kind of crashed and burned here. But it's an interesting point. It is. I'm just ready to. I'm just ready to if it works out for Matt Campbell quickly like it did for Frank Cignetti, I'm just ready to start a real toxic narrative that you can win the Big Ten with a bunch of G5 and a bunch of Big 12 kids. That's what I'm waiting for, baby.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think the quarterback situations, it's crazy because if a school neglected or decided not to pay the quarterback how much ever money, then you all know how that would go. So I think it's ridiculous. The no contact thing, I tweeted about it yesterday or maybe 2 days ago. I mean, that's just basically waving, this big red flag over here saying, hey, I'm clearly talking to another school, or another school has been talking to me illegally here. I don't understand the do not contact tag. I think it's ridiculous. I think you have to enter the portal and there has to be some sort of fine or penalization behind it. But I don't know. We're far, far away from figuring that out. But I think the interesting thing with the the coaches bringing their players with them. I mean, you look at Eric Morris too. I mean, he's bringing, goodness, what, 15 or so guys from North Texas, Oklahoma State. They're never gonna do this. But I would consider like, hey, if you're gonna take those kids, whatever their contract is, there needs to be some sort of tax that you have to pay to bring them with you. And I'm talking about from the coach to the school that go kind of, John Summerall donated money back to Tulane. Sort of that.
I think Georgia. I think some of Georgia's contracts might have buyouts in them. There's been chatter about buyouts, so that would address what you're talking about. If each contract has a buyout attached to it, well, that's going to be money you have to pay them on top of what you're paying for their NIL money, and they're not benefiting from it. Only the school that they're leaving has benefited from it. But Wes, and I'll close with this. Schuyler talked about the quarterbacks bouncing around. One of the other issues is, and we've discussed this on the show before, there's no certification process for who is and who isn't an agent for college football players. If you're a pro agent and you have dealings with the NFL, you have to get certified through the NFL, and that's not for everybody. And what that means is it's kind of a weeding out process.
You weed out the jabronis.
Reputation. You care as much about your reputation and your next deal as you do your current deal. But with college football, it's often somebody's, Aunt Sally, Uncle Sonny, whoever it might be, that only wants this deal for the money grab. There is no next deal. They don't care about their reputation. And the reason I bring this up, Sam Levitt, did you see who's representing Sam Levitt? I know nothing about this guy. I'm a big Sam Levitt fan in terms of what he can do on the field between the lines. His brother is representing him. Now, for all I know, his brother's an attorney. I have no idea. But as soon as I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. There's this much money at stake. I regard him maybe as the premier quarterback in the portal. A lot of people saw Sorsby as that. They're 1 and 2, tomato, but that's how good and talented Sam Levitt is. His upside's tremendous. He's going to land at one of the marquee schools, LSU, Miami, or it might be, in terms of marquee quarterback situations. And he's going to make a lot of money. Really, that you're having your brother. Now, you can make an argument, well, I trust my brother, but come on, that's not what your brother does, as far as I know. So that's one of the issues at the college level, too. There's no certification. Anybody and everybody can be an agent, and they're not worried about their future deals. They're only worried about this deal, and that's unhealthy.
It just reminded me, Jed.
100%.
Yeah. I do too. And being certified through the NFL, I remember you brought that point up maybe this time last year when we were having similar conversations, but I think that's a very good idea. And for whatever reason, guys, when Jed was describing that with Sam Levitt with his brother, it just made me think of the scene in Good Will Hunting where Matt Damon sends Ben Affleck into his job contract negotiations. And he's like, what do you boys know about a retainer? Can you put $200 in my pocket right now? Like, is that all these people's brothers and cousins and uncles going to negotiate their deal for him? And maybe not quite that extreme, but I do think we have that in some cases.
Where he said, every day I see you haven't left yet, I'm more pissed off. I thought you were going to the end when he told him that. His brother was talking to him about that.
No, I don't want to get that. I don't want to get that heartfelt and start choking up here on the show. I mean, come on, it's just a football. It's just a football podcast after all. Let's get to our break, and then we'll narrow this focus of portal season down to some WVU specifics, incomings and outgoings, the latest updates since we last discussed them about a week ago. We'll do all of that and more when we return on the other side. You are in the gun.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
There are better-known tractors in the world than Coyote. Ones with bigger names, longer histories, more popular hats, cute toy lines. But there's not a single tractor ever been built that's better equipped to do the dirty work. So we'll just focus on what really matters. Coyote, we dig dirt.
Get 0% financing for up to 84 months with approved credit on select Coyote tractors in stock now at Johnston Equipment. Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan.
You're listening to Mountaineer Football Talk.
ITG. When the sun's just rising and the work won't wait, you need the equipment that works just as hard as you do. Johnston Equipment delivers power, performance, and reliability day in, day out. Whether you're plowing fields, hauling loads, or planting the future, our tractors are built to take it and then some. Strong, reliable, ready.
Low rate financing available on select Coyote models.
Johnston Equipment, farming made easy.
Get all your Mountaineer gear in WVU apparel at the Book Exchange. They're the locally owned and operated retailer with more than 90 years of selling everything you need for game day and everything else you need to show you're the ultimate WVU fan. Shop at their 2 locations at downtown Morgantown or Evansdale on Pattison Drive, or online at bookexchangewv.com.
When shopping online at bookexchangewv.com, be sure to enter code INTHEGUN20 at checkout for an awesome savings of 20%. That's right, 20%.
Back in the gun here as we roll along, and it's time to get into portal season from a Mountaineer viewpoint. We do know January is the craziest month with all of this, so it's been a week since we all last spoke and talked, and a lot of moving and shaking, a lot of imports and exports since then. It is imports and exports season here in college football. And gentlemen, we all saw just before we started recording tonight, actually, that Jaheim White is going to North Texas. He'll be following Neil Brown down to join the Mean Green there. And Schuyler, I tell you what, man, that's now was Jaheim White like the player to be named later in all these trades of administrators and coaches and players that WVU and North Texas have had over the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this really goes back a couple of years now. If you really want to throw in Ren Baker,
yeah.
So yeah, I threw this little joke up on Twitter about the trade details for now, because obviously this thing's going to keep going with Neil being at North Texas. West Virginia got Ren Baker, Ross Hodge, Johnny Estelle, Jace Hurl, Andre Shaw, Mike Randall, Brendan Laurent, Jasper Floyd, DJ Thomas. North Texas receives Neil Brown, Chad Scott, Patrick Johnston, Javon Codlin, Jaheim White, Jason Cross Jr., and also what I forgot to mention on here, cash considerations.
Joe Green.
Yeah. And also 15 more players to be named later.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. At least 10, at least double digits.
Yeah.
Mean Joe. But all right. Yeah. Well, as soon as Jaheim entered, that was the talk, right? I mean, that was the speculation. And as I understand it, I'm not that, on top of the financial situation of the conference North Texas is in, but as I understand it, they're top quarter-ish in terms of what they spent on their roster from an NIL standpoint, so they can be competitive. And you would think for a G5 to make a run at a guy like Jaheim, you need to be one of those teams in that stratosphere to be competitive in terms of what you're going to offer him, because I'm sure that a guy like Jaheim had some offers. So, not shocking, right? A lot of people were speculating that as soon as he entered. So here we go. But we have other running back talk to get to, right, Scott?
Oh, yeah. As I've been talking about all week, I love to use the play on words here, cooking up a strong portal class here. You get the nation's leading running back in Cam Cook. And somebody came back to me. I think it was actually a Pitt fan that had created some West Virginia hate account that said, "Yeah, well, if you lead the country in rushing attempts by a mile, then you should lead the country in rushing yards. But as Jed has pointed out, he also led the country in missed tackles and a whole bunch of other things. So, look, Cam Cook, he's a stud. There's a handful of these guys I think Mountaineer fans are going to be really excited about. A couple of them that committed today that I feel are really going to be a perfect fit for this team and this culture. Tyler Stolsky, Florida Atlantic linebacker, played this past season partially with a club on his hand, a massive club, like almost so big that he probably had a boxing mitt on. Plays the game hard and physical. And then Kamari Wilson, Memphis safety, also played at Florida and at Arizona State. Big kid. I mean, the theme here with all these guys, and I think Jed will probably agree, you're getting a lot of bigger, faster, stronger players, which is all three things that Rich had been hinting at throughout the regular season. They got to get bigger, faster, more athletic, and they've definitely done that here in the first handful of days of the transfer portal.
I'm going to try and roll through my notes in the order that you're talking about them. Yeah, but Schuyler, especially on the defensive side of the football, when I see the acquisitions, I see length, I see size, I see large frames. And I'll hit those two first. You mentioned Tyler Stolsky. The kid's 6'3", 235. So he's a long-framed box player is what he is. He's an old-school box linebacker with some athleticism. Racked up 90 total tackles this year, a couple TFLs. He can be disruptive, but he's that play the game in a phone booth type of guy, that old school mentality. You talked about him playing hurt in that game against the UAB. And when you think about what those programs are all about, go back to Minnesota. When you think of PJ Fleck, he loves to recruit those types of kids. So it's not by accident that he started his career there before transferring on to FAU. So when I see Tyler Stolsky, I think he's a perfect fit, hand in glove with what Zach Alley's going to ask of him. And again,
Nico
Zach Alley, very
lookalike, by the way.
hands-on. What's that?
Looks exactly like Nico, by the way, just blonde.
That's right. But he's going to be very hands-on with these backers. So I think you're going to get the best version of Tyler Stolsky, and I think there's a pretty high ceiling for that. And you talked about Kamari Wilson. Yes, started at Florida, didn't play a whole lot. Arizona State, same type of thing. Really found a niche for Memphis in that Tigers defense. Another guy, 6'1", 210. He's a Florida kid, played against high-level football even at the high school level. But he racked up 80-plus tackles. Very disruptive. They used him in some creative ways. 6.5 tackles for loss, forced a couple turnovers, picked off a few balls. I even looked at some incompletions that he forced. I mean, those things started to rack up, which is what you want on the back end. I was looking at, okay, what kind of tacklers are these guys? Because one of the issues that we had for all the things that we did successfully on the back end last year, we missed a ton of tackles. Our secondary as a group had 80-plus missed tackles. So when I look at Kamari Wilson, he only missed 15 tackles, which was a 17% miss rate. He can play better than that. There's times that he has and stretches that he has. That's not bad, first of all, in terms of what some of these other guys can do and still be productive. But it was also interesting to see, and I'll talk about this with some of these other guys, what they asked of him within the scheme at Florida Atlantic. And then I was trying to see what that might translate into in terms of what Zach does. About 39% of the time, you're approaching half the time, he was on the back end playing free safety, being asked to cover space. But also almost 40% of the time, he was a box safety. So he's a guy with some twitch and some athleticism who can cover some ground, but he's also a physical guy, Owen, that can just be downhill and punch you. And you've played with some safeties, Mr. Schmitt, that really matters. And that type of thing, when they can fly downhill and be assigned a run fit, that kind of sets the tone for what a defense can do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that brings, Jamal Adai. I mean, that's who I, went against initially. And when I first got to Morgantown, old number 4 and we had some collisions. All right, we had some collisions there for sure. But we've had some guys here as of recently too, that have done great for us there. Fred obviously last year, but going back in the archives, Carl Joseph. We really, we need a player like that back there to set the tone for us.
As a lead blocker, you've been a guy who you've had to block all kinds of box configurations, but when they start clouding the front up and throwing extra bodies from the third level downhill to clog up some of those gaps, I mean, talk about the difficulty in that as opposed to just IDing, your responsibility with a second level player, a linebacker, whatever the case might be. When they start throwing extra bodies in there with these physical safeties, like Zach Alley likes to do, that's a bigger challenge.
Yeah, it's a bigger challenge, and you can kind of set up yourself like a linebacker. I mean, for the most part, a linebacker is going to take you roughly. He's going to choose a side or go down the middle. But when you get a really athletic safety or corner, even at that, now you got to kind of worry about getting jumped around, right? And for a bigger guy, tight end, especially if you're doing stuff lead blocking wise with tight ends, fullbacks now, that can put a lot of strain on that guy out in space when you have to deal with an athletic position player like that. And
That's exactly right.
At the end of the day, if a guy is willing to, most of the guys that play back there have to be athletic anyways, right? But if you got a guy who has the physical and the physicality attributes, that's, with what Rich is wanting, you're going to have a very special recipe for a tough secondary.
Absolutely. I mean, every DB is going to be asked to cover space. That's part of the job priority, right? But when you guys that are more than willing and inclined to stick their face in the fan, that makes you just a different type of defense when you start harvesting those guys in numbers, which is what we're trying to do. And I'm going to close out with some comments on Cam Cook's guy, and I'll toss back to you and see which direction you want to go next. But again, if you watched Cam Cook on tape or if you saw him play last year, it didn't take long to recognize the value and the talent and the skill set. I mean, it jumps off it really jumps off the screen at you. He's one of those guys, compact, 5'11", 200 pounds. Now remember, he started his career at TCU before transferring to Jack State, and he played some against at TCU. Actually, had a couple carries against West Virginia in the game a couple years ago down there. But it's not like he was not getting any reps there. He just wasn't the guy or the bell cow. And at Jack State, he absolutely was. You talked about the missed tackles force. Now, to give this some perspective, I put a tweet out, and the tweet kind of went viral. I'm curious by nature. So when I see a guy on tape, and I'm like, man, he's just making a ton of dudes miss. There have to be numbers to support that. So you dive into the metrics, and PFF, for instance, listed right away 100. Okay, well, obviously 100. I knew it was more than anybody in the Big 12 had. So I was like, how does that stack up in Conference USA? Does it lead them as well? Sure enough, it did. So then I checked, well, that had lead the nation. Maybe it's right up there. So I checked the country. He led the country. And now it's when I get really curious. So I was like, all right, well, where does that rank against some others in recent history? So I looked to last year, and I saw right away that Ashton Genty and Cam Scatabo both had over 100. But I'm like, all right, those guys, by any measure, are outliers. They're freaks, okay? They're known for forcing missed tackles. So let me give it a fair punch and keep looking a little back. I went back to 23, the season before, nobody had 100. 22, nobody had 100. 20, on down. You see a trend emerging here, right? So the next thing you know, I went all the way back to when PFF started tracking this metric in 2014, and there are hundreds and hundreds each year of guys carrying the ball that can register an MTF, a missed tackle force. So that's thousands since they started tracking this metric of ball carriers. There have been 3, and I just named them, since they started tracking the metric that have registered 100 MTFs or more. And he's right there with Ashton Genty. And if you knew anything about him when he was at Boise, and he's going to have a bright future when the Raiders put an offensive line together for him, he's a stud. Cam Scatabo, there's only one Cam Scatabo. And then there's Cam Cook. And not only that, but he was very durable. If you remember, Clint Trickett was the OC at Jacksonville, coaching with his dad, Rick Trickett, a year ago. And Clint really fed this guy. He recognized the hot hand, and he said, I'm riding with the horse that brung me. He said, look, if you're going to be that kind of guy, I'm going to give you that kind of opportunity. 5 different times, he had 25-plus carries in a game. And the missed tackles force, here's another way to look at how it translates. He had, after contact, he had 1,142 yards. Guys, that was more yards. He had, after contact, more yards than every running back in the country except 15 had total yards. So that just gives you some sense of the type of physicality and skill that he brings to bear. And then finally, I'll close with this. I mentioned he was playing behind an offensive line coached by Rick Trickett. Owen, you won't be surprised by this either. 75% of his carries came with zone run concepts. Yes, Trick always mixes some gap in as well, But the type of zone concepts that we've talked about before, about that vision where you're reading the cutback, or you're going to bounce that thing, or you're going to bang that thing, that's what he's used to playing behind. And that's why he's obviously such a great fit for what Rich does with Rick Trickett as well. So I couldn't be more excited when you start looking at how that running back room is coming together. I mean, we've talked about some of the signees and what they're going to bring, whether at the junior college level or even, we got the player of the year out of Georgia. We stole him from Wisconsin, right? When you're looking at Amari Latimer, I'm just so excited about the possibilities in that room, because by hook or by crook, what happened with that running back room a year ago, where through attrition and other issues that we were trying to overcome, the injuries, the eligibility issues, we were down to Curtis Jones as a linebacker having to tote significant carries and short yardage for us. We are not going to find ourselves in a desperate situation like that with that running back room again. It's not going to happen. We're going to have talent, volume, and skill in there.